So a lot of you guys are probably familiar with the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to get Mike Johnson removed as Speaker of the House. Now, I do want to go ahead and play this report from CNN about the whole situation, and then we're going to go over, some explanations as to why this might be happening. Honestly, I think this makes a whole lot of sense. For once, I think I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm going to explain why.
House Speaker Mike Johnson is fighting to keep his job, the job he's had for less than 6 months. At least 2 House Republicans are threatening to oust him over his plans to handle Ukraine aid to Israel. This was his message just a short while ago.
I am not resigning, and it is, in my view, an absurd notion that someone would bring a vacate motion when we are simply here trying to do our jobs. It is not helpful to the cause. It is not helpful to the country. It does not help the House Republicans advance our agenda, which is in the best interest of the American people here.
CNN's Manu Raju is on Capitol Hill. You've been talking to lawmakers all morning. Obviously, Manu, this is about, in the short term, the politics for Mike Johnson, but we shouldn't lose sight, of course, of the fact that Ukraine and Ukraine's allies, both here and abroad, have been begging Mike Johnson to do something quickly so that they don't lose to Russia.
Yeah, this has been going on for months and months and months. And just about 2 months ago is when the Senate passed its own foreign aid package that Mike Johnson sidelined as he tried to come up with his own strategies. He tried to win over Republicans. And just yesterday, he announced that strategy, saying that he's going to move forward on separate bills for Ukraine, for Israel, for Taiwan, and another bill that includes other policy measures, including a ban.
Which is good, because I think he did say he was going to bundle like Israel funding and Ukraine funding and all that stuff together. So it is good that he's putting this up.
Something that could eventually lead to a ban on TikTok. But here's the catch. It is expected that the House will use a parliamentary maneuver to essentially put all those bills together in one package and send that over to the Senate. And that is what's causing a lot of angst within the GOP ranks. A lot of Republicans, particularly on the hard right, have said there should not be another dime for Ukraine. They do not want to tie this to aid to Israel. Democrats, the White House, want it all tied together because of what they say is an essentially an emergency for Ukraine. They say that this money is needed right now. Now, this all comes, of course, as the threat to push out Mike Johnson is growing. In fact, Thomas Massey, who is a Kentucky Republican, announced behind closed doors that he would support this effort by Marjorie Taylor Greene to push out Mike Johnson from the speakership. And he called on Johnson directly to resign. And I asked him about that interaction in that tense exchange behind closed doors. So you want him to resign? You want him to resign?
Yes. Yeah, I asked him to resign.
What did he say?
He said he would not. And I said, well, you're the one who's going to put us into this. Because the motion
I do believe that he publicly said that he would not resign as well.
is going to get called.
I'm not a big fan of this, well, I like the individual votes. I'm not a big fan of putting them all back together.
What about the motion to vacate?
We don't need that. No way. No way. We don't want that. We shouldn't go through that again.
One thing I do like about Jim Jordan is that not only does he seem like a pretty principled dude, he seems like a very staunch conservative, but he also seems good-natured and he likes to avoid drama. And I think he's one of the few people who's able to do that without like voiding and nullifying his principles. Like, I appreciate that he's like, no, let's not do this. We should try and find a way to work together rather than just ousting the dude for not doing what basically we voted him in to do.
So you're seeing a difference of opinion there from two conservatives on the right flank of the Republican conference. Of course, Jim Jordan's being one who's influential within a lot of Republicans. But it's interesting to hear Jordan there. While he opposes this effort to push out Mike Johnson, he also is opposed to what the speaker is trying to do here. You're seeing a lot of divisions among Republicans at this critical time because there's a question here, Dana. How long can Johnson survive? And does Mike Johnson even have the votes to get this measure out of the House by the end of the week, which is his goal? So just so many things are riding on these key decisions at this moment, but a very precarious time for the speaker.
Almost Speaker Jim Jordan there saying, no, we should not do this again. The dynamic among Democrats, particularly those who are the most vulnerable.
So honestly, I don't really care as much about what the Democrats have to say, so I'm just going to forego that entire section. Excuse me. However, you have to remember kind of the context of which the context under which this guy was added to understand why they want to get this guy removed. So this takes us all the way back to October 1st of 2023. Matt Gaetz had basically said that he wanted to remove Kevin McCarthy because he was supporting stopgap bills. And he was wanting them. Let me see if I can find the line about the single issue bills. Oh, yeah. So this was in response to the passing of stopgap legislation. The stopgap legislation that was hastily passed on Saturday with hours to go before the federal government ran out of money. This will sound familiar in a second. Did not include border security provisions or broader spending cuts that had been demanded by some of the GOP. McCarthy had previously supported such moves as well. The measure funds the government through mid-November while Republicans continue to work on single subject, longer-term spending bills. All Democrats but one joined 126 Republicans in approving this temporary bill on Saturday. 90 Republicans voted against it. I tried every possible way, listening to every single person in the conference, McCarthy told reporters on Saturday after the vote. I want to be part of the conservative group to get things done. So this guy wants to do single subject bills, longer term spending bills. Also wants to get rid of the stopgap spending, which is completely fine and admirable. I also would like to see a change to that as well. However, what happens when Mike Johnson becomes Speaker of the House? Well, in November 14th of 2023, not that much longer after that, what have we here? Mike Johnson backing a stopgap bill. And this was met with controversy and anger from the Freedom Caucus, which is quite fair because if you remember the Freedom Caucus, they were backing Matt Gaetz, and stopgap bills were one of the things that they specifically wanted to avoid and get rid of. So, this may seem like a new thing, right? With Marjorie Taylor Greene over the past 2-3 weeks saying, "Oh, let's get rid of Mike Johnson." That might seem like a new thing, but stuff like this has been boiling. Tensions have been boiling since November. So we should not be as surprised as I think a lot of us are. Now, it's not just stopgap spending, it's stopgap bills. Mike Johnson also decided to fund an omnibus bill. Representative Dan Bishop, a Republican from North Carolina, quipped, "I think we are going to suddenly develop the resolve to make fundamental change and substantial fiscal reform, and the Senate is going to go along because they want to save the country." I don't think any of that will happen. I think we will see another omnibus appropriation bill. And then he was asked if it causes a problem for Johnson. Bishop argued the speaker didn't create those problems. While, to be fair, Mike Johnson didn't cause those problems. He was specifically voted in to fix them. So he is not doing what he was voted in to do. And so I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene actually does have a point here. Now, Matt Gaetz said that any future Speaker of the House will need to forego these typical practices of continuing resolutions and omnibus spending bills. You can read about that here. He said his Speaker vote will come down to spending. My personal decision will come down to spending. I want to hear these candidates say we are done governing by continuing resolution and omnibus bill, because for me, this was never personal. Now, one thing that surprises me, though, is that Matt Gaetz is not, saying, hey, we need to get rid of Mike Johnson, because many of the same complaints he had about Kevin McCarthy, Mike Johnson is perpetrating these exact same issues. Part of me is like, well, why aren't you trying to oust Mike Johnson? Now, part of it could be that he knows that other people are going to carry that torch for him. He doesn't need to be the face of that. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, is probably going to carry the torch on this occasion. But it's a shame because, you guys saw my videos, right? Like, I was excited and I thought that there was going to be major change in Washington, but it turned out it was business as usual. We cheered and we were like, yeah, let's go. Like, rah, America. Like, finally, we're going to change the system. Finally, we're moving away from this dubious way of doing business. And we just got more of the same. Very, very disappointing. But before we wrap up, let's listen to what Marjorie Taylor Greene has to say. She was recently accosted by reporters at Capitol Hill. Here is what she had to say in response to the fury and fervor regarding this whole situation.
The cameras don't have to reach as much.
Congressman, now that the speaker is openly, there's some discussion and lobbying for him to change the motion to vacate threshold, make it higher. Does that mean you're going to move forward as soon as today?
Mike Johnson owes our entire conference a meeting, and if he wants to change the motion to vacate, he needs to come before the Republican conference that elected him and tell us of his intentions and tell us what this rule change to the motion to vacate is going to be. And I'll tell you something, Kevin McCarthy, while he was staring down the barrel of a loaded gun, he never made a move.
Oh yeah, that was the whole thing too about getting rid of, like, changing the threshold for getting rid of the Speaker of the House. I don't think that I think that he had said that he didn't want to change that. I thought he said he was comfortable governing with that single vote limit, that single vote policy. So, it kind of seems a little bit sus that he wants to change it now that he notices that the siege is getting a little bit too warm for comfort.
While he was staring down the barrel of a loaded gun, he never made a move like this behind closed doors and made deals with Democrats to change the motion to vacate. And we're hearing that's exactly what Mike Johnson is doing. It's unprecedented. This has never happened in history, and it's completely wrong. He owes our conference the truth, and he owes Republicans answers.
Does that mean you will go forward today? Will you go forward today?
I'm waiting to find out what's going to happen. And this is the type of betrayal that Republican voters are absolutely fed up with. He really crossed the line with most Republicans across the country with what he did on the FISA vote last week, being the final deciding vote against warrants and then passing FISA. And now he's moving forward, making funding to Ukraine, $60 billion to Ukraine, his top priority, the most important thing he can do in a speakership, and he's willing to work with Democrats to make that deal and get that done and change the motion to vacate to do it.
Have you heard from other colleagues who say that this potential action could put them more in your camp of wanting to motion to vacate sooner rather than later?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
People?
Yeah, and honestly, I agree. I think that this is true because the more, like, we did see, who's that guy? I think Massey was the guy who said, I think that I want to support Marjorie Taylor Greene's efforts as well. So the more time that passes where, Mike Johnson continues to continues to support this method of spending that is not in line with the reason, with what the Freedom Caucus wants, the more likely it is that he gets booted.
I've told you guys I will not speak for my colleagues. That would be extremely disrespectful for me to do. It's up to them to come forward and say it. But if Mike Johnson goes in there and attaches to the rule, which is the Rules Committee is meeting right now, so we'll see when that vote takes place. If he attaches a rule to change the motion to vacate and then uses Democrat votes on the Rules Committee, he's going to prove exactly what I've been saying correct. He is the Democrat speaker. I don't think that's ever happened in history before, and that's going to be the message that will definitely change everything.
Speaker Johnson was asked directly why he believes it's worth losing his job potentially over putting aid to Ukraine on the floor, and he said it's because it's the right thing to do. What do you make of that response from the speaker?
He's serving Ukraine first and America last, and that would be the worst thing to
Oh,
do.
man. I didn't think that she was going to respond with a slogan, though, to be honest. I didn't think that she was going to respond with a slogan. I feel like there's got to be something that happens. Part of me wonders, like did he get, like, captured? Maybe not blackmailed, but like, did he make some sort of deal where it's like, oh, if I support funding to Ukraine, then you guys will help me with this other thing that I'm working on? Because that's entirely possible. And if the show Designated Survivor is accurate, then people make deals like that all the time behind closed doors. But it's just unfortunate when you were so vocal about fixing all the problems that Kevin McCarthy perpetuated, and you are resolving none of them. And in fact, you are perpetuating all of the same ones that he got booted for. I'm like, man, it's a shame what happened too, because we were so excited for him and he hasn't changed a thing.
For a United States House of Representatives Speaker, third in line to the President of the United States, to do nothing for American citizens. Think about this. Monday was tax day. So as Americans were paying their hard-earned tax dollars to this government, the Republican speaker is hinging his entire ability to stay speaker on sending $60 more billion to Ukraine. I can't think of a worse betrayal ever to happen in United States history. And here's what's really ironic. The constitutional attorney, Mike Johnson, is literally betraying the American people in order to keep his grip of power on the speakership.
What about the idea that Republicans?
Well, I mean, to be fair, the only people who are threatening to remove him are the Freedom Caucus. If he was really so concerned about making sure that he maintained his speakership, then he would have caved to their demands already and done what he had promised to do.
I think I speak for the people.
Sorry, it's way too quiet. I know that I'm boosting it with the compression, but on mine, it's just way too quiet for me to hear.
In order to keep his grip of power on the speakership.
What about the idea that Republicans?
I think I speak for the people. And the people are the party, and that's everything wrong with the Republican Party. Many Republican leaders have forgotten that, and this is why Republican voters for many years now are so tired of the Republican Party that writes strongly worded letters, has a great 3 to 5 minutes on Fox News, and continues to just give these talking points but never backs it up with actions. Republican voters want actions. They want to be protected from the destructive Democrat agenda, and Republican leaders aren't doing it.
It's true.
What's holding you?
Have you talked to Trump about this since Friday when he met with the speaker and he said I stand with him?
I'm not
I love this question. Have you talked to Trump about this? And you know why I find this hilarious? Is because Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of those people who ties herself to the hip to Donald Trump. And while Donald Trump isn't always wrong or right about things, I don't like it when people do this because it prevents them from thinking for themselves. I look at Marjorie Taylor Greene and I'm just like, she's just like a secret agent for Donald Trump at this point. She's just doing whatever Donald Trump says for her to do. Remember, she was on the phone during the last speaker fight, like being like, hey, talk to Donald Trump. Look at my phone. Like, come on. And that's what's frustrating about this too, is that like, I'm not saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene is wrong because she's actually right to oust him. As a matter of fact, I mean, he should have been ousted months ago. But at the same time, you do have me questioning the reason why you're doing this, when in the past, you know, it's been demonstrated that you are basically doing every single itty-bitty thing at the behest of Donald Trump rather than out of your own political values, your own personal values, or the values of the people who elected you. That, to me, is my main complaint about Marjorie Taylor Greene's efforts here.
going to be disclosing my conversations with President Trump. I think President Trump made it clear when he said, we'll see what happens.
So what's holding you back from moving forward right now, given that all the objections you've been raising and the possibility of this motion to vacate being raised? What's holding you back?
This is a legitimate question. This is a legitimate question. However, I will say that Matt Gaetz' mistake with ousting Kevin McCarthy is that he didn't have a plan. He ousted Kevin McCarthy, and then there was no option, and then we were floundering around for like 2 or 3 weeks, being like, oh, I don't know who we're gonna pick. I would not be shocked that Marjorie Taylor Greene right now is trying to gather the troops, behind the scenes, and get some people to agree on who the successor should be, so that it's really quick. It's just like out with the old, in with the new, no crazy drama, and no undue gridlock in Washington as well.
I'm a responsible person. I've been a business owner and a successful business owner most of my life before I came to Congress. I'll say it again, I respect my conference and I respect my colleagues. I also want to do everything I can to project our majority and keep it next time. And so I'm not acting out of emotions or rash feelings or anger. I'm doing this the right way, and I'm allowing my conference to see exactly what I saw months ago. And I called it out in my Dear Colleague letter. We have to work as a conference, and when the Republican Party figures out how to be a team, then I'll argue the Republican Party will finally learn to govern.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, not a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she's actually right here. I'm looking forward to seeing Mike Johnson removed. Look, I don't have any ill will towards the guy. Right, he seems to be like okay as a dude. I know that he has some fringe stances. He leans towards like the Christian nationalist camp on certain issues. Like I think didn't he want to like recriminalize like what was it, like adultery or something? I don't know. He's kind of like more along like that part of the political aisle, but at the same time, I do appreciate that he stands up business. I do appreciate the fact that he's conservative and he has like the right views on social issues, in large part guided by the fact that he is a Christian. I would just wish that he did what he was brought in to do. He didn't do any of that. So it's unfortunate. It's a shame. But yeah, unfortunately, business as usual in Washington. You elect someone and they don't do what you want. Unless it's Trump, I guess. I don't know.